Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about the things I wish I knew before going freelance. I should preface this video by saying that I am by no means a freelance expert, but last year when I unexpectedly lost my job, I kind of fell into freelancing and I have been navigating this space for a few months now, so I thought I'd share what I wish I had known when I first started. We will dive straight in because if you're a freelancer like me, you know very well that time equals money. And speaking of money, these are the type of things that I wish someone had told me before I embarked on my freelance journey, because money is obviously a big thing, and going from having a steady, stable income from your 9 to 5 or any kind of regular job, it's something that often we give for granted. At least I feel like I did. When I first started my freelance journey, I was unclear on the type of money decisions that I was going to have to make. So here are some things that if I could go back, I would do differently. The first thing is savings. Now, you hear it all the time if you're about to change job, take a career break, or go freelance, or maybe decide to build your own business. Savings are a very important thing, and people often say that you should have 3 months worth of savings, 6 months worth of savings, because you never know when your next paycheck is gonna come from. You know that when freelancing invoices are a bit difficult sometimes to chase, and so having savings can really be helpful. However, what people fail to mention to me is, what do you do if something actually goes wrong? So okay, you have savings. You have saved 3 months to 6 months of your salary. So you have all of your expenses paid. You're fine for that time. However, life doesn't necessarily work that way. When I first went freelance, I was scammed and basically didn't have a place to stay, and I had to spend a lot of money in temporary accommodations, which not only delayed all of my work relationships and my building my roster of clients, but also completely drained my savings much faster than I could have ever predicted. Now you're probably gonna think, well, but that's just like something that happened to you, which, yeah, you're right, it's an unfortunate thing that happened to me, but equally, it's a very important thing to plan for. Things happen in life, things go wrong, things change very suddenly, and you do not want to be in the situation of not having enough money to support yourself, your family, and your business if you're building one. So my quick tip for anyone who's looking to transition to freelance life is to actually allow for at least a year worth of savings. Make sure it's enough money, make sure you're gonna be comfortable earning absolutely nothing for at least a year. Something else that I also wish I had kind of learned a little bit more about before embarking on this journey was how to calculate my business expenses. When I first started, I was thinking of the advice that you hear a lot going around online, which is you can build a business with zero money. Building a business online doesn't cost anything. You can do a lot of things for free, which is true, but also there always will be business expenses that you haven't accounted for, especially if this is your first time working for yourself and building a company or building a roster of clients. There are so many things that I was giving for granted when I was working in corporate office. Small little things like your printer. You're not gonna be able to use the office printer to print any documents, or you're not gonna be able to ask IT to help you fix your laptop. And we'll circle back into some of these things at the end of this video, but those are just like important things that you have to consider. Plus, unless you have been in a position where you were overseeing budgets or where you had a very sort of top level look at the business that you were working for, you're genuinely not going to know all of the things that take to build your own business and your own venture. So when it came to business expenses for me, I wish I had actually budgeted for more money each month to invest in my business, particularly because when you are building yourself up from zero, there's obviously going to be so much that you can do, and you want to have enough money to be able to inject in your business to be able to then make money. But let's stick with probably one of the most important money things that I wish I had known before embarking in this journey, which is how to charge for your services. This completely threw me off. I had worked and done little jobs and like freelance gigs before, but you charge differently when you're actually doing it as a side hustle than when you're doing it as a full-time job. The reason is you have to account for so much more. When you work in a 9-to-5 or in any salary job, if you're lucky enough, you will have contribution paid, you will have your pension paid, your national insurance paid, your holidays are paid. But when you're working for yourself, all of those things have to come from you. So you actually have to make sure that when you're creating whatever prices your services or your products are going to be like, that is also included in the cost of it. So it isn't just about the cost of the materials or the time or your experience, but it's also any taxes that you're going to have to pay, your holiday, any equipment that you're actually using to produce or create whatever your product or service is. All of these things have to come into account when you're creating your rates. My biggest mistake when doing my rates was to actually charge per hour instead of by project. And I'm gonna explain a little bit about what happened. When I first started, I immediately just jumped into finding clients, which was good and bad because obviously I had no clue what I was doing. And when the first clients started approaching, I offered them a day rate with a breakdown of an hourly rate that I had. That unfortunately didn't work for me, and it resulted in quite a lot of frustration when trying to work with these clients. And it wasn't their fault at all. It was me not creating something that actually fit within the idea and the business model that I had in mind. If you charge an hourly rate or a day rate, you are also having to obviously show how much time you have spent doing each task. That is absolutely normal. It makes total sense. But if you're someone who is bringing in a certain wealth of experience and seniority to the services that you are offering, hourly rate doesn't quite make much sense unless you set one that is high enough for it to be covering all of your wealth of experience. For me, for example, I know that I can perform certain tasks extremely quickly because of my experience doing those tasks before. If I charge just based on my time, then it's just not gonna work for me at the end of the day. This is a very personal decision, and I am not saying that you should charge by rate, that you should charge by day or per project, but I wanted to share this because I wish I had thought of it when I started my journey. I tend to charge based on the project or the task that I am asked to work on. And finally, on the money side of things, taxes. Don't take any advice from me because I am still trying to figure out mine, but you have to keep that in mind. You have to understand how taxes work in whatever country you are, in whatever like kind of business you are. And it's very important because based on the kind of taxes that you're gonna have to pay and based on the kind of regulations that are created in the country where you work, you might be able to, for example, claim back some money, or you might have some expenses that can be considered business expenses. But most importantly, you're going to be able to set a rate that will allow you to put money aside to pay your taxes each year. I'm sure there will be more on money things that I'm gonna find out, and if there's anything that you have learned that you would like to share, just please leave them in the comments down below, because we're all learning and there is so much to know when you're trying to set on your own business venture. The next thing that I want to talk about is mindset. There is a huge mindset shift that needs to happen when you're going from working a 9-to-5 to being a freelancer. I have always considered myself someone who can work really well on her own, who can self-motivate, and who has a very good mindset towards work. But I honestly still struggled when I made the switch. One of the most important mindsets is to have a growth mindset. This is super important because when you're trying to build a business and when you're trying to do something new, you have to really embrace failure. You have to really see every opportunity that you are taking as an experience and not as something that needs to have a certain result. If you don't embrace a growth mindset, you run into the risk of feeling like a failure or feeling like maybe you're not succeeding in the way that you wanted or dreamed of. And chances are that before you can actually see your good work coming to fruition, you are going to give up. So having a growth mindset when starting starting out on your own is a super important thing, to be able to embrace the journey, embrace the chaos and the messiness that comes with doing something new for the first time, sometimes in a long time. I was in corporate for almost 10 years, which is a very long time, and I realized how much of my mindset were molded into the way that we work in a 9 to 5. When I went freelance, I had to adapt my growth mindset and really lean into it to make sure that I wasn't using the same metrics that I would be using in a 9 to 5 to measure my work and my results. And along the same line, another very important thing is to understand the value of being disciplined. This is something that I genuinely struggle with, and I didn't think I would. But as someone who works primarily on my own, I have to really find the motivation to do tasks and to put in the work, especially in the initial phases of building a business or building your roster of clients. It can be very frustrating. I'm a very target-orientated person, which means that when I don't have a specific target given to me, I struggle to complete a task. But the thing is, when you are your own boss, which is so glamorized, you have to set your own targets, and then you have to have the discipline to pursue them and achieve them. This will be different for everyone, obviously. You might be someone who self-motivates really well, who works very well on their own, but for me, as someone who always valued collaboration and teamwork and mentorship and guidance, this was actually a really difficult thing. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still struggling with it. That, coupled with the fact that I'm a procrastinator, really makes it challenging to be a freelance. But I'm learning some small ways that I can artificially create an environment where I am pushed to achieve the goals that I need to achieve. When I first started my freelance journey, I remember thinking, this is going to be amazing. I will be my own boss. I will set my own working hours. I will just work whenever I feel like it and however I feel like it. And then it just didn't work like that. And in a way, I was right. I was able and I am able to do that. However, the risk with not having any structure at all is that you're also not going to have any work-life balance. This is even more true if you're working from home versus if you maybe have an office space or co-working space where you can actually take your job. But not having structure isn't all that I was thinking it would be. I thought it was gonna be this fun way for me to actually be creative and being able to go and work from a coffee shop, or being able to work at midnight if I wanted to, or during a weekend. And sure, that is true. I can do that. I have that flexibility. However, I took it too far. I think particularly at the beginning, when making the transition, having a 9 to 5 gives you a lot of structure, and sometimes for people like me can feel a bit constrictive. However, it also allows you to switch off from work, which if you're someone who has a lot of passion and a lot of care for the kind of work that you do, can be a very, very important thing to protect your mental health. So one thing that I wish I had known is how I would need to really make strong boundaries when it came to my work and to my life. This could look like having a different phone if you can afford that to do your work, so that you have like some separation, or it could simply just be that you are going to just cut out some times where you are not going to think about work. It could be sticking to your lunch break at whatever time you're taking that, or having one day of the week where you do not think about work. Maybe you don't even log in to any of the platforms or the things that you usually check. I know this is really hard because when it's your business and you can always do something more, the temptation to be constantly on, it's really high. But unfortunately, your mental health would struggle. And the one thing that I've learned is when it's you and you are the business, you're the most important asset, and your well-being is everything. And the final mindset change that I really had to try and learn, and still am, is to understand the importance of self-promotion and embrace the cringe. Because I am telling you right now, nobody cares about your business. Certainly not as much as you do. And so if you don't care about your business so much that people start paying attention, your business is not gonna go anywhere. And honestly, I'm saying this to you as much as I'm saying it to myself. Making sure that you talk about your services, that you're networking, that you're actually talking about what you do and how good you are at what you do. It's super important when going freelance. It is kind of similar to what you would have had to do in a 9 to 5 if you wanted to get a promotion. But of course, in a 9 to 5, there's a lot less noise, if you like, because you know that you're kind of aiming your pitch to one person, i.e. your manager. Whereas as a freelancer and as a business owner, actually have to aim it at a lot of people. You have to be loud and you have to be very proud of what you're offering. I am honestly still learning this because I struggle so much to sell myself. And it's a funny thing because I really love selling products and I was really good at the selling part in my previous jobs. It is a bit different when you're selling something that you're doing. It requires a lot of self-confidence. And honestly, I'm not quite there yet, but I wish someone had told me how important this would be. Now let's talk about some practical things, shall we? Because these are just as important as all of the things that I have listed so far. The first thing that I wish someone had sat me down and discussed with me or helped me figure out is which kind of services I was going to offer. Because you may think, well, that's bizarre, you should have known that. But because I made the transition to freelance quite suddenly and unexpectedly, I wasn't particularly ready for it. It sort of just happened, and with my very different and varied experience, although that is like a really good thing, it's also a confusing thing because I finally had to make a decision on the type of services or products that I was going to offer as a freelancer. And I think this is gonna be an ever-evolving thing. But to have at least maybe 1 to 3 products or services that you're happy to offer and to make those in different kind of like modes of delivery would be a really good thing to start with. And on the same line, going back to the boundaries, figuring out your working hours. For example, are you going to be working 7 days a week? Please don't. It's not good for you. You should think about that because you're no longer constricted by the 9 to 5, which means that you could potentially work from Thursday to Tuesday and then take the rest of the days off. Or you could perhaps not have Mondays or Fridays as a working day. The possibilities are endless, but I would definitely suggest to trial something that allows you for the flexibility. You really want to be able to enjoy perks of being a freelancer because there's definitely going to be a lot of drawbacks from transitioning into this career. And it's important that you keep it exciting and comfortable for you. Finding clients is also a very important thing because you need to figure out where are you going to find your clients, what type of clients would you like to work with, and how to actually land those clients. For example, do you need to create a portfolio? Do you need to search in specific websites, or is cold calling something that is required for the type of services that you offer? Do you reach out to your network to find your first clients? Is a website needed? There's so many things that you can think of, but getting clear on those things can really help. And one thing that I think is particularly important is try to have a think about the type of person that you want as a client. I know that when you start off as a freelancer, you kind of need the money most likely, and you're not gonna want to be picky with the kind of people that come to work with you. But equally, it's so important to make sure that you surround yourself with clients that appreciate your work, that work in the same way that you do, and that you love to work for. Otherwise, you're just gonna recreate a potentially toxic work environment. And what's the point of building your own business if you cannot decide who to work with? It is definitely worth staying away from clients that do not align with your values or with your ways of working, and to wait for those clients who are actually going to be a joy and a pleasure to work with. And this is also true for the money side of it. So remember, if you're having clients who are being difficult, who are not paying you on time, or who are making it a bit uncomfortable for you to actually pitch your services and your experience, then perhaps those are not the clients for you. You deserve someone that is going to value your service, value your time, pay you on time, and that is going to be pleasant to work with. From a practical point of view, going back to the fact that you're gonna have like a lot of flexibility, having a small routine in place can be very helpful. And I don't even necessarily mean a work routine, I kind of mean just a general routine. So having some things that you're gonna do every day to get yourself ready for work, or to do some things to maintain a little bit of a rhythm. We are a creature of habits, and we're very used to following patterns and things, and so it's important that you recreate some of those in your day-to-day, particularly to focus on your well-being, and to remember that although you're not gonna have to go to an office, or although you're not gonna have to switch switch on your laptop at a certain time. Starting the day in a certain way and finishing the day in a certain way can definitely help both your creativity and your business and yourself thrive. And finally, last but definitely not least, is the fact that you're going to have a think about the place that you're going to work and the equipment that you're going to work. And those are only two of many things that you're going to have to consider. When I first stopped my 9 to 5, I didn't realize how many things I was using. So going back to what we said before about, for example, having a printer or having an IT guy that you can just ring up if something goes wrong, you need to have a think about what you're going to do in those situations. Being prepared when it comes to have your own business and being a freelancer can be a very big thing. Because what happened to me, for example, is a few times I'd had hiccups and things that went wrong, and quite honestly, I got extremely overwhelmed, wrapped myself into a massive rut, and it was really hard to find the motivation and the strength to get out of it because I was on my own. My laptop crashed, or I didn't have something that I really needed. Do you have any friends that you can reach out to if you need any help with like IT problems? Or have you got a buddy that you can have maybe like a monthly or a weekly check-in just to make sure that you've got someone to bounce ideas off? Do you have a space, a dedicated space where you can leave all of your equipment, all of your things, and that can also function as a bit of a boundary in the sense that when you go to that place, when you go to that desk, or when you go to that room, that's your work time and is very defined and it's not going to bleed into the rest of your life. All of these are very important things that you should think about, alongside obviously the very practical aspects of, are you going to need extra equipment and have you budgeted for that? What is it going to happen if one of your pieces of equipment breaks? Do you need insurance? Should you be investing in that? There's all of these things that I don't think people talk about a lot because, quite frankly, it's a little bit like having a kid, not in the sense that it's the same thing as having a baby, but in the same way that if you think about it too much, you may never actually take the leap and do it. Building a business and being freelance is definitely one of the hardest things that I have ever done, and I am very excited to continue my journey, but I think there needs to be a little bit more discussion around these things, and there's definitely a lot of stuff that I wish people had told me, or I wish I had someone to talk to about, because it's so challenging, but it's also an incredibly rewarding and amazing journey to embark on as a young professional. And that's it for today's video. These are just some of the things. Quite honestly, I probably could have gone on forever, but I don't want to make the video too long. I would love to know if you're currently freelance, if you just fell into it, if you decided to go for it, if any of this resonate, and most importantly, if you have any advice. I will be forever grateful, and I know that everyone else in the comments will also be very grateful for your tips. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and to hit the like button to support my channel and my business. And if you've got any requests for future videos, please let me know. I would like to say good luck in your business venture. Your dreams are worth chasing every single time, so never stop. And I hope this was a little bit of motivation for you to keep going.